Ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the EyesIsWatchin channel. Now, remember the slogan, "No New Wars"? Yeah, that was the slogan the masses were sold by the Trump administration before he got into office. You know, like the main campaign promise. The same man that said all of the Middle Eastern wars in the past decades were completely outrageous. I mean, the over-the-top spending, the countless lives lost, the most pointless foreign policies ever. Yeah, for all those that fell for that one, I mean, I got the biggest award ever to give you because, wow, even I couldn't have predicted this level of backstabbing, okay? The last time people were this backstabbed, they found out Milli Vanilli was really lip-syncing. Seriously devastating, okay? So the same man that was yelling that these pointless forever wars in the Middle East have cost us trillions of dollars. I mean, he was on video saying they were completely pointless and have put us into trillions of dollars in debt. Well, his administration just came out with this BS. Hegseth confirms the Pentagon is seeking about $200 billion more for the Iran war. He said it takes money to kill bad guys. He also said that that number could move, probably to the upside. Think about how crazy that is. Even the COVID vaccine required billions of dollars to kill people, okay? Maybe they consider all of us bad guys too. Yeah, remember the end to forever wars? The DIC say as they laugh hysterically like some demonic reptiles. The new script is out, folks. Check this out.
As far as the oil prices, people just need to stop panicking. It's worth it to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon. So if I have to pay a little bit more for gas, I'll do that.
Pay the price, I mean, in order to have long-term stability.
The disruptions in the global markets are real and may be painful. But the long-term benefits, again, are incalculable.
There may be some sacrifices to be made at the pump on a temporary basis. I'm willing to pay 30% or 30 cents more at the pump to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon.
To win in life, you got to suffer short-term pain for the long-term gain,
Oh,
short-term pain for long-term gain.
Freedom is not free. Americans are going to have to make some sacrifices.
This is short-term, and I'm asking you to just trust the man, okay? Trust the system, let him
Unbelievable. Short-term pain for long-term gain. And they're saying they don't mind, you know, paying a little extra at the gas station. And mind you, these are millionaires. Of course they don't. I mean, how obvious is it that all of this is scripted? Trump said this about the Iran war right here. He said, we could leave today and it would take 10 years to rebuild the damage that has been done. But I think we have to make it a little bit more permanent. I mean, could it be any more clear he's not running the show here? Seriously, short-term pain for long-term gain. And we all know what the end game looks like, okay? This is what you call the give Israel everything agenda, okay? Quick, you stupid goyim, empty your goy pockets. The coin shavers are back and they need another temple in Jerusalem. And you're paying for it. And now, Pentagon officials have made detailed preparations for deploying U.S. ground forces into Iran. Honestly, I'm shocked. I'm seriously at a loss for words here. This is clearly about blood sacrifice and nothing more, okay? It's not incompetence, it's demonic possession. And that should be a new slogan here, okay? Even Charlie Kirk said this.
This is Israel's war. The worst possible case scenario is Iran says, okay, you humiliated us, you killed all of our leaders, we're gonna go make this a regional mess and try to get as many people involved as possible. They're gonna go after Americans, they're gonna go after Saudis, they're gonna go after everybody imaginable, just to create a big mess and to try to draw the world into it. Here's where I stand and where the MAGA base stands. We do not want U.S. boots on the ground. We do not want American kinetic involvement. This is Israel's war.
And boots are on the ground, folks. That's how quick things change. Now, all of these old clips of him circulating online, you know, from demanding the Epstein files are fully released, unredacted, and that the people demand to know the truth, and that the Zionists were actually threatening him, and that they had way too much power over Congress. And now clips like this saying if MAGA does this, we should know who really runs the show here, okay? He said this is Israel's war. I mean, it's not far-fetched to believe the higher-ups took him out before continuing with the rest of the agenda. I mean, this guy had a huge hold on the minds of the MAGA people's brains, okay? The young and especially the older folk. It just sounds highly unusual. I mean, they take him out and all of this stuff just so happens to play out. The Epstein stuff, the official toppling of the Iran government plays out too. I mean, I'm not saying I trusted Charlie Kirk ever, but it just seems really weird, the timing. And another bizarre thing that just happened recently, Jeff Webb, Charlie Kirk's mentor, a massive figure in conservative circles and the founder of Varsity Spirit, dead at 76 from a pickleball accident. took a hit to the head. 2 weeks later, he's on life support, then gone. This is the same guy who was publicly speaking after Kirk's assassination, calling him a future president, showing up at the White House tied into the whole political network here, and now he's gone too, just like that. I'm not saying this is impossible because, you know, they say pickleball is apparently quite the dangerous sport. Okay, if you look up the injuries because of it, it's actually kind of crazy. It's just the timing of this seems highly unusual. After everything that just happened, I mean, after the Epstein stuff blowing up, the Iran situation escalating, Kirk taken out, and now the mentor figure drops in one of the weirdest ways possible. Doesn't it feel like pieces getting cleared off the board here? Can't tell me Erica Kirk doesn't have something to do with this, okay? I mean, she might be the new Hillary Clinton, getting people picked off left and right if they don't follow the script. The timing is strange, right? And now somehow Israel is the victim of all of this, of course. They launch the strikes, kick off a war, and drag the West into it as usual, and then they flip it into we're under threat. Same pattern every single time. They start it, then they sell it as self-defense. They cry out in pain as they strike you. The IDF coming out and posting this right here. They're saying Iran just launched a long-range missile, first time since Operation Roaring Lion, capable of hitting around 4,000 kilometers, which means they're capable of hitting London, Paris, Berlin. I mean, this is crazy. This is a whole different conversation now. Then they go back and remind everyone, oh yeah, we told you all about this in June 2025 during Operation Rising Lion. More like Operation Israel's Lion. Iran's been trying to build these long-range systems. They denied it, but look, now we're right, they say. And then they hit you with this line. The Iranian regime is now a global threat because of these missiles, okay? Not regional, but now it's global. Dozens of countries are now in range. You see what they're doing here? This is the setup, okay? This is how the stage gets set. You don't jump straight into a large-scale escalation out of nowhere. You build the narrative first, then you expand the threat. Another worldwide emergency, people. You move it from this is happening over there to this could hit your city. Because once people in Europe, I mean, you know, they start hearing about London, Paris, Berlin, now it's personal. It's not some distant conflict anymore. Now it's justification. And historically, this is the kind of messaging that shows up right before something happens that forces everyone into alignment. And when that moment comes, aka major false flag, you already know what the response is going to be. More war and more control, all justified overnight. Look at what's now happening behind the scenes, people. US military officials are considering deploying around 4,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne straight into Iran to take Karg Island, which is the country's main oil export hub. This isn't a minor thing here. This is their immediate response force, meaning they can be on the ground in under 18 hours. Another option on the table here is 2,500 Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit moving in first. The airfield on the island was already damaged in recent strikes, so the idea is Marines go in, repair it, secure it, and then flying in more troops and equipment on C-130s. After that, the 82nd Airborne comes in to reinforce and take over longer-term control. On paper, it sounds pretty clean, right? Just like the Iraq War did. In and out mission, but really think about the reality of what they're describing. Paratroopers don't bring heavy armor. The Marines don't have long-term staying power. You're talking about thousands of troops landing on a small island inside Iranian missile range with limited protection if things go sideways. And they even canceled a training exercise in early March just to keep command units ready to deploy immediately. So everything is being positioned right now. So if you were setting the stage for a major escalation, this is exactly how it would look. You build a narrative, then move the pieces into place. And then all it takes is one event, okay? A major false flag. I mean, what if something really happened to the troops there? Those troops land, and there's some major attack. Heavy casualties, you know, Deep State pulls it off and, of course, blames Iran. The response writes itself. Massive retaliation and then full involvement. Worldwide, probably. And then public support locked in overnight. And everything we're watching right now just becomes the lead up to that moment. Laura Loomer is predicting once again another terror attack 10 times worse than 9/11 that will happen very soon. This is like predictive programming because this is a Mossad agent that's handed the script right here. That's right. Larry Sleep Paralysis Demon Jumer says, watch out because it's coming. Look, this will be the most predictable false flag in history if it happens, okay? Everyone is expecting it, even mainstream news, okay? Here in Canada, they're telling us a cyber attack here is imminent, gonna wipe out everyone's savings in their banks. You know, perfect timing for the CBDC digital ID system incoming. So how perfect is it for the DICs that Iran would do that? And now you're starting to see the economic side of this unfold in real time, and this is where it gets serious. Missiles hit major gas reserves in Iran and Qatar, disrupting global energy supply immediately, while tension builds around the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical oil choke points in the world. Supply tightens, at the same time fear and uncertainty rise, and that combination pushes prices up fast. You're already seeing the impact with fuel prices climbing and governments stepping in. In Australia, regulators are warning gas companies directly not to price gouge or mislead customers, and they're actively monitoring the market as pressure builds. At the same time, the focus shifts to how people respond. Officials are warning that panic buying fuel is already starting, and that behavior makes things a lot worse. So price increases, then major panic buying happens, which strains supply chains even further. The comparison is already being made to COVID. They're saying this is COVID 2.0. When people rush stores and emptied shelves, you know, mostly toilet paper for some reason, and they're calling this a second warning. The message is that COVID exposed how fragile global supply chains are, and this situation is exposing that same weakness again. Check this video out right here, okay? Hundreds of gas stations in Australia are completely out of fuel and diesel. Energy minister says the country is now preparing for the worst case scenario. This person writes on Twitter, this is Mad Max, the beginning. Okay, this is like the real life version. Seriously, look at these headlines right here. Grim countdown begins as millions of Aussies warned a huge change in 3 weeks will leave everybody worse off. Cannot keep going. Supermarket prices expected to soar next month. Truck operators warned rising fuel prices to blame. So before shortages fully hit, the messaging is already set. They're actually preparing you for what's to come. Expect disruption and prepare for total instability all around the world at the same time. Slovenia becomes the first EU country to introduce fuel rationing. This is like exactly what they wanted for the climate lockdown BS. Now they get it over the threat of war. Now zoom out for a second and look at what's happening all at once. The Valero Port Arthur in Texas just randomly caught on fire too. One of the biggest in the US, doing roughly 400,000 barrels a day, sitting in a region that handles close to half of America's refining capacity. The Strait of Hormuz is basically shut down. Iraq just halted its oil production because things got too unstable, they say. Qatar's LNG hub is damaged. Oil is now above $100 a barrel. The US starts authorizing sales of Iranian and Russian oil just to keep things from getting worse. All of this happening across different parts of the world at the exact same time. Adam Cochran on X says this: everyone's worried about oil at $200 a barrel. $100 a barrel for the rest of the year puts the US in inflation with negative GDP growth, and the follow-through effects would linger for 2 to 3 years because of lagging input costs. 1 year of this war will cost the US economy more than previous decades in the Middle East. Then Australia is over there warning about panic buying, supply shocks and fuel shortages, using the same kind of language, getting people ready for disruptions before the full damage even hits. Predictive programming through MSM headlines again. The headlines are designed to send people into a panic, and it's working. I mean, why else would they have headlines like this? Grim warning, you're all gonna die. Supermarkets emptied out in these videos here coming out of Australia. Look at these videos. It's crazy. Rising prices are becoming the normal. Shortages becoming something we're told to prepare for, and the blame gets pushed onto regular people panic buying too. So all of this is actually because of consumer behavior. So nobody looks too closely at the bigger picture here. Then the pressure keeps spreading. Energy gets hit first, then transportation, then food, then everything connected to it. And as that spreads, dependence on the same system that caused the instability just keeps increasing. And now add this into the pile. Ukraine just hit Russia's Primorsk oil terminal, one of the country's largest export hubs on the Baltic and a critical route for Russian oil moving out to global markets. Fires breaking out at all of these fuel reservoirs after the strike. That's another major energy spot getting hit. And the timing of this come on. Is all this just a coincidence? The Middle East gas reserves hit, the Strait of Hormuz effectively shut down, U.S. refineries going up in flames just randomly. I can't tell if that's a false flag or, the standard U.S. infrastructure just falling apart. You can't tell anymore. And now Russia's export flow takes a hit too. All of it happening at the same time, across different countries in the same sector, producing the same result. Less oil moving, more pressure building, prices getting pushed across the board here. Every one of these hits feeds into that same collapsing system, a worldwide manufactured collapse. Energy gets squeezed from multiple directions, and everything connected to it starts feeling it. Transportation costs rise, food costs rise as well, manufacturing costs rise, and daily life becomes more expensive everywhere at once. Doesn't that perfectly set the stage for a UBI system and CBDC? We start looking towards the same people that caused it for the solution. Global crude oil is already pushing past $100 a barrel. And on top of all this, when you zoom out and look at the full picture here, it's pressure being applied across the entire energy network at the same time. Supply lines hit in different ways. Some done with missiles, others are made to look like just the usual infrastructure falling apart. All of this is happening worldwide, and if the pressure keeps building, it's going to be felt across every sector. It doesn't just stop at energy too. I mentioned last show about fertilizer being affected if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and now we're seeing it happen. Now we're seeing it move into food production too, okay? Australia's largest ammonia plant is down for months already, which directly cuts into fertilizer supply, the main thing needed to keep crop yields high enough to feed entire populations. If ammonia gets hit, you don't feel it immediately, but it shows up in the next cycle with lower output and higher prices across the board. At the same time, fuel shortages are already starting to hit transportation. There are reports of theft increasing. Truckers pulling back because costs are too high and warning about disruptions to deliveries. That's where this starts moving from price increases into actual availability. Could this go where we think it could go? A worldwide Mad Max state? In Cuba, the lights are off. This person on X says,
this is Cuba, and there is no electricity anywhere because there's no oil, there's no energy. And this is what it looks like. Except
that's
that hotel,
crazy.
because it's a 5-star hotel. That's
Oh.
it. Everybody else is in the dark.
That's crazy. And this person here, Cash for Turtles on X, says they are using Cuba to test how the rest of the world will react. This is going to be everyone soon. This is Donald J. Trump back in 2012. Now that Obama's poll numbers are in tailspin, watch for him to launch a strike in Libya or Iran. He is desperate. That's what he said, okay? I already brought it up a few shows ago. Straight up calling it. When things start slipping, next move is war. Now look at what's happening. His numbers were sitting around 48 not too long ago. Now they're down to about 42. People are turning on the Iran situation, okay? Gas prices are climbing, and more than half the country is already saying they'd blame him for that. Inflation is still the number one issue for voters, not even the war, which just adds more pressure on top of it. And if you look at the actual data, it gets even worse. Inflation expectations have just shot up to around 5.2%, the highest level since 2023. And the chart shows a sharp spike over the last couple months, especially after the Iran conflict started, meaning people are now expecting prices to keep rising, okay, not coming down anytime soon. And the markets are reacting fast. Just a few months ago, they were expecting multiple rate cuts this year. Now they're talking about a real chance of rate hikes again by the end of 2026. 2026. Oil is pushing past $100 a barrel. Gas prices are up close to 50% in just a few months. Bond yields are climbing. Mortgage rates are hitting new highs again. And even Europe is looking at raising rates too. All of that just means borrowing gets more expensive. Housing gets tighter and more unaffordable. And everyday life costs more across the board, okay? And if oil stays high for a bit longer, inflation is expected to climb even further from here. Inflation is through the roof. The US officially hit $39 trillion in debt. In debt to who, you say? Well, I think we all know. It just crossed that number after adding another trillion in about 5 months. And they're already saying it's on pace to hit 40 trillion before the next election. Spending is still massive and wars are a big part of it. And the Iran conflict alone has already cost billions of dollars with no end in sight. Hegseth says he needs another 200 billion. You've got economists warning this is completely unsustainable. And most people already feel it, tying all of this directly to higher costs and more expensive borrowing. But at the same time, they're out here saying the economy is sound, okay? Nothing to worry about. Like people aren't watching their expenses go up in real time. Hegseth saying, well, you know, it takes money to kill bad guys. What more needs to be said, guys? This is clearly blood sacrifice. That's almost word for word what he said. Think about how insane that actually is. The trillions need to be spent on killing more people in the Middle East, okay? Like really? That's the main priority? Like not helping the average American that's struggling right now? What does that tell you? I mean, Trump even said Americans should be thanking me. I thought I'd be making them suffer way worse than they are. Hold up, what? Did he just admit what the whole agenda is really about? Suffering? All of these politicians working together to make you suffer, okay? While gaslighting the shit out of you. And this is all happening right after Trump was just saying inflation is plummeting, incomes are rising, the economy is surging, end quote. At the same time, support for the war is dropping fast. Nearly half the country is against it now. And even people who voted for him are starting to pull back. Trump's director of national counterterrorism, Kent, resigns. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. That's crazy, people. So right when all of that starts stacking up, we're suddenly deep into another Middle Eastern conflict. Same timing again, okay? Everything's going great, they say. And while people clearly feel the opposite at home, that's called gaslighting, people. And then you remember what he said a few years ago in October 2021. Israel is literally owned by Congress, okay? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it was so powerful, and today it's almost the opposite. Israel is not a force in Congress anymore. It's amazing. They had power, Israel had such power, and rightfully over Congress, and then now it doesn't. Incredible. Then last year, he says, my father would tell me the most powerful lobby that there is in this country is the Jewish lobby. It's the Israeli lobby. So he's openly talking about how powerful that influence is, saying it out loud. And then his ratings start slipping and he leans straight into a war that lines up perfectly with Israel's interests in the region. So who's he trying to impress here? And these ratings everyone keeps talking about, what are they actually measuring? Regular Americans dealing with higher costs and watching this unfold, or something else entirely? The people actually watching from the outside, the ones who benefit from these moves. Because when he says he felt like he didn't have a choice on Iran, that tells you everything. That doesn't sound like someone in control. I mean, Trump in 2008 said this.
Nancy Pelosi, the speaker?
Well, you know, when she first got in and was named speaker, I met her, and I'm very impressed by her. I think she's a very impressive person. I like her a lot. But I was surprised that she didn't do more in terms of Bush and going after Bush. It was almost, it just seemed like she was going to really look to impeach Bush and get him out of office, which personally I think would have been a wonderful thing.
Impeaching him?
Absolutely, for the war. For the war.
Because of the conduct of the
war. Well,
he
lied. He got us into the war with lies. And, I mean, look at the trouble Bill Clinton got into with something that was totally unimportant, and they tried to impeach him, which was nonsense. And yet Bush got us into this horrible war with lies, by lying, by saying they had weapons of mass destruction, by saying all sorts of things that turned out not to be true.
That's crazy. See how fast things change on you? You know, they get into power. I don't know if they're replaced with a clone or compromised through blackmail, but the crazy Israeli 180 people, they all do it. Now, during the biggest spike in anti-Semitism in modern history, what does Netanyahu say? Genghis Khan would totally own Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's right, stupid goys. Disrespecting your prophet right to your face while bombing your churches. Greatest ally ever, am I right? By the way, dozens of church bombings are documented too, a few here. In Gaza alone, at least 3 churches were hit. The Greek Orthodox Church, one of the oldest churches in the world, bombed while civilians were sheltering inside. The Holy Family Church, the only Catholic church in Gaza, damaged in a strike that took many lives. These weren't military bases. These were places people ran to thinking they'd be safe. Then you go to southern Lebanon, multiple churches destroyed there too during operations along the border. Entire villages flattened, and every single time they say the bombings were just collateral damage. And the explanation? Same script every time, okay? Hamas was nearby somewhere. Hezbollah was operating in the area, or militants were using civilian infrastructure. That's the justification every time. Doesn't matter if it's a church, a hospital, or someone's home. If they say a militant might have been somewhere in the vicinity, well, that's enough. So we're supposed to believe that the places civilians go for safety magically become military targets the moment they get there. Iran war is the Iraq war, okay? Almost identically. So after Trump said that in 2008, that lies got us into the Iraq war, he's doing the exact same thing on behalf of Israel.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
The threat comes from Iraq. It arises directly from the Iraqi regime's own actions, its history of aggression, and its drive toward an arsenal of terror.
Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. This terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon.
Saddam Hussein is a homicidal dictator who is addicted to weapons of mass destruction.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
There can be no peace if our security depends on the will and whims of a ruthless and aggressive dictator.
And they are indeed sick and sinister.
The Iraqi regime was required to destroy its weapons of mass destruction, to cease all development of such weapons, and to stop all support for terrorist groups. The Iraqi regime has violated all of those obligations.
Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location, but they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons.
The evidence indicates that Iraq is reconstituting its nuclear weapons program.
We warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons.
Satellite photographs reveal that Iraq is rebuilding facilities at sites that have been part of its nuclear program in the past.
We sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil.
The entire world has witnessed Iraq's 11-year history of defiance, deception, and bad faith.
For decades and decades, they've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore.
Some believe we can address this danger by simply resuming the old approach to inspections and applying diplomatic and economic pressure. Yet this is precisely what the world has tried to do since 1991.
For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries.
Iraq possesses ballistic missiles with a likely range of hundreds of miles, far enough to strike Saudi Arabia, Israel, Turkey, and other nations.
The regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas.
In the last year alone, the Iraqi military has fired upon American and British pilots.
Okay, people, this goes on forever. Okay, the same exact script. Clearly, these guys are clones, programmed by the same DICs or blackmailed. Something is going on. Demonic possession? How does that quote go again? When all other distractions fail, they take you to war and initiate Project Bluebeam? Well, that's what they're doing, people. So we now are in the final stages of the Illuminati card deck, okay? It's exciting and also freaking terrifying. I don't know. Well, these are exciting times, I must say, but wow. Because we have no idea what comes next. I mean, a false flag drone attack on your city block or an alien mothership hovering over your city. You never know what's coming next. We thought COVID was outrageous. This is next level right here. Of course, both events will be manufactured by the same deep state, but the masses will fall for it, okay? Of course. Considering this is what they look like vaccinating their children with COVID mRNA death shots. Yeah. The stuff we warned against forever. I'll get into the new studies confirming what we already knew. But let's keep going with this, okay? The timing is comical. The White House just registered a domain called aliens.gov. Really now. Government out here securing alien domain names like they're about to start selling alien MAGA merch. And I don't mean illegal alien merch, okay? I'm talking about little green dudes hanging with Trump in a spaceship. That's right. And the timing, people. Think about it. Just a month after Trump says he's going to start releasing UFO and extraterrestrial files, suddenly this pops up. Website's not even live yet. So we don't even know what kind of info will pop up on them. Look, we've dealt with so many psy-ops lately. Aliens could literally land and say, hey, what's up? And we'd be like, yeah, nice psy-op, bro. But what are they planning here? Like, they're setting the stage before the show starts. And of course, you got officials coming out doing their usual routine. Yeah, we're looking into it. Don't want to oversell it. We'll see what we find. Same script every time. They keep it vague too, just to keep people curious. They want people interested in this BS, all for a distraction. Clearly, they want to keep the hype slowly building. Meanwhile, you got former Pentagon insiders saying, yeah, there's an actual insane amount of photos and videos they're keeping secret for now, just waiting for the right time to release them. Satellite images, fighter jet footage, things they claim don't look like anything we've built. Stuff they've been sitting on for years for no rational reason. Why didn't they release them before? And then Obama jumps in with the classic politician answer. Aliens are real, he says, but also probably not here, but also maybe somewhere out there. But definitely nothing to see when he was in office. So let me get this straight. If all of this stuff supposedly exists, why didn't he release it? Why now? You're supposed to believe this is all just happening organically, right on schedule, right when tensions are rising, wars are escalating and economies are collapsing and people are starting to ask too many questions. That's when they hit you with the alien card. They all work together, people on different sides to promote the alien psy-op. Or could it be these people all play their role at different times, passing the baton back and forth, rolling out whatever narrative is needed when it's needed? Because this feels less like a disclosure and more like timing. Look over there, aliens, Trump says while standing on the steps of Epstein's Island. Moving on to another segment here. This one's going to keep coming back. It's called Conspiracy Theorists Were Right Again. At this point, conspiracy theorists are just regular people paying attention. And the ones still glued to the propaganda, those are the actual conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy theorists are celebrating like they just won the Super Bowl every day now. Why are titles like this popping up everywhere all of a sudden? CIA accused of poisoning the sky with toxins as files expose secret weather control agenda. I know many of you are like, wow, no way, right? They're poisoning the skies. The government is poisoning the skies? No chance. But I'll go over what some of these articles say, and most of it is stuff we already knew. These CIA documents that have been out for a while describe U.S. involvement in weather modification research going back to the 1960s. These programs included Project Storm Fury, where aircraft release chemicals like silver iodide into hurricanes in an attempt to alter their intensity. Another program here called Project Popeye, which I've been over many times on this show, it was a program that was used during the Vietnam War to extend monsoon seasons. The goal was to disrupt enemy supply routes by increasing rainfall, causing flooding and landslides. Government records also show support from President Lyndon B. Johnson at the time, who spoke about the strategic importance of controlling weather. In quotes, when Johnson was president, he said, "He who controls the weather will control the world." The U.S. government has stated that weather modification efforts were intended for purposes such as reducing storm damage and assisting agriculture. The same records confirm that toxic chemical agents were used in these operations, compounds like silver iodide and other substances tested in environmental conditions. Now, it went over much deadlier experiments done here in Canada, Pacific Northwest and some places in the U.S. too, which is interesting. These articles leave those ones out. Why? I mean, those were much worse. Now reviewers of these files state that these weather modification programs went beyond research and were used to influence environmental conditions, with claims that they were capable of manipulating storms, reducing sunlight, and affecting food systems to impact populations. Decades ago. That's crazy. If they were testing weather modification weapons back then to reduce sunlight or even affect food growth, think about where that technology is now. Think about if they want to force people into megacities. How easy would it be for them to do it if they can force droughts and destroy agriculture in certain areas, which we're seeing happen now? And how diabolical. It would be so hard to determine who's behind this. Is it man-made or climate change or weather modification? Think about how hard it would be to expose that, especially to the majority of the public that will never accept that idea, even though we have declassified documents exposing it. Nice flashback right here. Check this out.
We've got a bit of an unusual situation. Now, this first portion of the radar cycle, fairly bland and typical, but then you see these bands of very distinct cloud cover moving into the region. That is not rain, that is not snow. Believe it or not, military aircraft flying through the region is dropping chaff. Small bits of aluminum, sometimes it's made of plastic or even metallicized paper products, but it's used as an anti-radar issue, and obviously they're up there practicing. Now, they won't confirm that, but I was in the Marine Corps for many years, and I'll tell you right now, that's what it is.
Wow. Wow. Then he continues on with the weather and what the temperature is. That is crazy. They probably fired him for that. That is crazy, but shout out to him for exposing that. I mean, they do tests like that all the time. There's always a different excuse. That's for preventing radar systems or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. Now back to the article here about chemtrails. Declassified documents from 1965 show that funding for weather control programs increased significantly under President Lyndon B. Johnson, who also supported the development of this technology. Since the beginning of these programs, it has been claimed that these aerial trails contain chemical agents released by military and commercial aircraft over populated areas. Some descriptions of these trails suggest they persist in the atmosphere for extended periods and differ from normal condensation behavior, raising concerns about potential effects on air quality, water, and human health. Anyone else notice a lack of bugs on people's windshields back in the 90s, driving on the highway? Your car would look like it got hit with the green Nickelodeon slime by the time you got back from a road trip. And now it's gone. Some people say it's due to cars becoming more aerodynamic. Others say it's obviously the constant spraying and those EMF bug zappers on every corner. That's right, 5G and even 6G. Who knows? Now, at the same time, historical records confirm that chemical substances were used in weather modification efforts, including silver iodide and lead iodide. During the Vietnam War, cloud seeding operations using lead iodide were carried out to increase rainfall along certain trails, which contributed to flooding and landslides that disrupted supply routes. Lead iodide is known to be toxic due to its lead content, obviously, which can cause neurological damage, kidney problems, developmental issues in children, and other health effects, with no established safe level of exposure. Additional claims point to environmental testing, documentation, and other sources as evidence of ongoing atmospheric activity, including the use of aircraft systems designed to disperse particulate materials. The craziest theory is many aircraft have this stuff put in fuel so it's easier to get away with. Dispersal programs and mechanisms release tens of millions of tons of particulate matter annually, including aluminum, barium, manganese, graphene, and polymer compounds. People are saying this could be what's causing the unusual rise in Morgellons disease as well. But the real question is, why is this flooding my newsfeed again? You know, my newsfeed is all flooded with old declassified CIA documents. Remember the demonic sleight of hand, folks. Why are these big Twitter accounts sharing this like it's breaking news? I think the agenda right now that they're pulling off is so major, we are truly in the end game of their worldwide takeover. That's why they're basically admitting every little evil thing they've ever done in the past as a distraction from the major evil they're doing now. Is it a coincidence? Barium and aluminum, some of the main ingredients of the chemtrails. The elements spell Baal. The same statue the Iranians were burning before the US decided to bomb them. Speaking of all the poisons in the environment, let's move to the one they inject straight into your bloodstream, because the most effective poison is the one that goes directly in, like venom. And once again, conspiracy theorists were right, okay? Come collect another one of your awards, damn it. This one's big. I mean, a peer-reviewed study looking at over 500,000 kids, pulling data from NHS England and major institutions like Oxford, Bristol, and Harvard, compared vaccinated children to unvaccinated ones. What they found is myocarditis and pericarditis, which is inflammation of the heart, was only documented in the vaccinated groups during the study, not observed in the unvaccinated kids. And the younger the kids were, the more it affected them. Now, what's real psy-oppy here is why are these big names all sharing this right now? That's what's baffling once again. Riley Gaines shared it among others. This is an Olympic athlete who refused to play against dudes in wigs. I know, right? What a hero. She also refused the vax and is now a political activist. So many people shared this one post here, and it's interesting because all of these people are Trump supporters, yet won't call him out for Operation Warp Speed. You know, Mr. Father of the Vax, they just got himself, a double whammy of death. That's a double injection of both the flu shot and the COVID vax in the same arm, if you can believe that. But notice how our feeds for the past few weeks now, as I've went over the last show, are flooded with declassified CIA documents about cancer cures or confirming chemtrails, admitting vaccines are poison. All of that is done for a reason. I really think they want people to know they've been poisoned in many ways, so it accelerates the depopulation agenda. They want people stressed and thinking, oh no, I was injected with poison, or oh no, I'm inhaling poison all day, so that the placebo effect itself completes the rest of the agenda. They're also admitting what they've done because it doesn't even matter anymore, okay? A total worldwide collapse seems to be coming. Wars triggering economic collapse, staged alien invasion too, on top of all that, is coming soon. So the crimes against humanity in forms of lethal injections seem minor at this point. Think about this. In the lead up to this war with Iran, Mr. Operation Warp Speed works with the deep state to gain people's trust, then poisons the people en masse. A shot designed to target the young fighting age males, their hearts mostly. Think about how crazy that is. Look at the increase in diseases in the military after the shots were rolled out. It's insane. Remember this data that came out of Florida? The state surgeon general runs an analysis using a standard vaccine safety method. And what do they find? An 84% increase in cardiac-related death in males aged 18 to 39 within 28 days of taking the mRNA shot. 18 to 39. What age group is that again? Oh yeah, that's right. That's your fighting age males. The military age population. Seriously, what are the chances? And here's where it gets even more specific. They point out that non-mRNA vaccines didn't show the same increased risk. So now Trump, father of the vax, pushed a shot targeting a very particular demographic with a very particular outcome at a very specific time. You can already see the bigger picture here, okay? So we've got data showing heart inflammation showing up in the vaccinated, a spike in cardiac deaths in young men right after injection, and all of this happening right before tensions ramp up globally, right before the beginning of large-scale wars happen. You don't need a big imagination to see how that lines up, because if you were going to weaken a population before conflict, you wouldn't go after the elderly first. You'd go after the young, the healthy, the ones who would actually be sent to fight. And now suddenly, that exact group is the one showing increased cardiac issues right after being injected. And these same troops are being sent to Iran right now. Coincidence? The same man behind Operation Warp Speed also started the war with Iran? Well, ain't that some shit? And it doesn't even stop at the heart, because while everyone's focused on physical damage, remember what vaccines do in general, neurologically. Neurological issues have exploded, especially in kids. Severe cases, lifelong conditions, way more common than what people remember growing up. But even beyond that, there's something harder to measure. People feeling disconnected. Relationships feeling empty, like they're going through the motions, but something's missing underneath. Emotional depth just not hitting the same. What's crazy is older medical literature talked about this exact type of thing, subtle brain dysfunction. Not enough to completely disable someone, but enough to change how they process emotions, attention, and social connection. They saw similar patterns in people who had brain inflammation decades ago. They'd recover physically, but their personality would shift. Something about them just wasn't the same after. Now fast forward to today, and you start seeing those same patterns pop up again. At the same time, you've got studies showing an overlap between autism and gender identity. Let that sink in. You've got data showing certain groups report identity-related issues way more than others. That's right. Then you factor in the environment too, like plastics, chemicals, hormone disruptors, everywhere. Stuff that directly affects development, and you can already see the full picture here, okay? Physical and mental damage done on purpose. People's behaviors are changing. Identity confusion too, all rising at the same time, all hitting the younger generations the hardest. We all know this is by design. And now in some places they're saying they're taking the mRNA shots off the market. Can you guess why? Because they got a cute rebranding. That's right. Guess what they call the vaccine now? They don't call it a vaccine anymore. They call it same-day euthanasia. Shout out to Canada for this one. You thought it couldn't get worse. Not even joking. Check this out in Canada. They've got people getting approved and injected within 24 hours. Same-day service, like Amazon Prime, but for death. Safe and effective death shots, people. It's crazy that they push the COVID shots as the injection that will save your life, but then the people that suffered debilitating diseases from it were offered the final solution, the same-day euthanasia injection. Same-day approval is insane, okay? You can't even return a damn toaster that fast. And they've got cases where people literally changed their mind, said they didn't want to go through with it, and somehow the process just carried on anyway? Can you imagine that logic applied anywhere else? Like, yeah, I don't want this haircut anymore, and the barber pulls out a gun like, it's too late, buddy, sit down. I mean, maybe that's why Canada is a country pushing close to 100,000 assisted deaths. That number alone is insane. It's higher than the entire Canadian World War II death toll. Think about that. And this whole thing runs under a nice clean label, okay? MADE. They want to make it sound caring until you actually look at how it's set up. There's different tracks, okay? So track 1 is what they show you, people already on their way out, so they make it look compassionate. But then there's track 2. And that one applies to people who aren't dying anytime soon. It's nothing terminal. They're just struggling in some kind of way, maybe even financially. And now it becomes a judgment call. Some committee somewhere deciding if you've considered your options enough. So there's this gray zone where someone else gets to weigh your life to determine if your life is worth living or not. And people are starting to speak up about it. Doctors, mental health professionals, disability advocates, they're all pointing out the same thing. People are not choosing this because they want to die. They're choosing it because they're stuck. No money, no care, no real support system. And instead of fixing that, the system offers them this one exit door. Okay? Next up, suicide pods on every corner. And they're already rolling those out. Even the United Nations had to step in and say, yeah, maybe chill with the track 2 idea, Canada, which says a lot. When the UN steps in and starts telling you to slow down, you know you've gone completely insane. This MADE program here in Canada is speeding up too. More approvals. I mean, they're widening the approval guidelines every day, and it's same day in some cases. Walk in, get approved, death shot, and you're out of here. That's a system now, folks. Elbows up, Canadians. Oh, you can't put your elbows up because you're dead. And it's not all bad news, people. There is some good news here. Okay, good news coming out of Canada. Check out the headline right here on the Toronto Star. The R word is seeing a resurgence. What happened? I'd like to give a big shout out to everyone that still uses the word retard on the daily. You, my friend, are a hero. I mean, where would the world be without you? The description says for World Down Syndrome Day, advocates have taken to social media to help spread the message that despite its growing use, the word should be taboo. Yeah, what kind of retard wrote that? Speaking of retards, look what people are finding on dating apps right here. Emma, 31 years old. I love abortions and immigrants and trans people and Palestine and fluoride. Now you see this right here? This is precisely why the word retard is being overly used. Has nothing to do with people with like actual mental disabilities. It's for people like Emma, okay? And these leftists only bring up Palestine as a political talking point. They couldn't care less about Palestinians. So Canada is at same-day euthanasia programs, and they want you distracted with aliens while you're looking up to the sky waiting for little green men to land. This is what they're building behind the scenes. All of these Western nations are doing this right here. This is wild. Palantir just rolled out this Maven smart system. This AI-driven central brain for warfare, connecting all of these things like satellites, drones meant to track movement, analyzing behavior, identifying targets in real time. I mean, it's a system that watches everything and flags targets based on how you move. Now, here's what we know for a fact. They say this is meant for war zones, but we already know it's being used in major cities. Once they drop this into everyday life, you'll have the same AI system watching movement patterns in real time. Where you go, how often you go there, who you interact with, how long you stay, what routes you take, and instead of enemy targets in quotes, it will be non-compliant individuals, people leaving their designated zones, people stepping outside their 15-minute district. You're starting to see where this is headed? And while all this chaos is happening globally, from wars to nonstop distractions, they're quietly building and normalizing this infrastructure piece by piece, rolling it out in one environment first where nobody questions it. Of course, we need this for war. Then of course we need it for reading license plates. And once it's accepted and fully integrated, the building of the digital prison is fully complete. Check this out. America's newest digital ID proposal just dropped in the U.S. Senate. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn has introduced a new AI bill that bundles 17 different policies into one massive 291-page bill. This is just like these other tech bills we've been seeing, a massive digital ID framework with universal age verification being the key to access the tools. The bill includes mandatory age verification for every existing account and freezing accounts until users verify their age, as seen here. New accounts will be required to age verify, and all accounts will be subject to periodic age verification. Duty of care sounds good, but this will undoubtedly become a mechanism for regulating speech and requiring identity-linked controls. The language of reasonably foreseeable is very broad. And the person introducing this, of course, has gotten about $1.4 million from the pro-Israel lobby. AIPAC tracker, folks. Voidly says mandatory age verification tied to every account turns access into a checkpoint. Freezing accounts until identity is confirmed is not protection, it is control over who gets to participate online. That is absolutely right. Under the guise of age verification, they will, of course, tie everything into a digital ID, as Whitney Webb states right here.
There's a coordinated global policy push for digital IDs as the new form of government-issued identification credentials. And they're essentially all based on your biometric data, which can be your fingerprints, your face, the iris of your eyeball. And the idea is essentially to collect all of that data and have it housed or have it tied directly to your digital ID. So your physical ID will be mapped to the digital ID. Digital IDs are not really a separate project from CBDCs and this new digital financial system. And UN documentation and also documentation from the Bank of International Settlements, they very overtly state that CBDCs and digital IDs are meant to go together. And without digital IDs, the CBDC digital finance system cannot exist. They have to know who you are. And so they want to have your wallet tied to a digital ID and have that digital ID be mapped to your physical ID through the biometric data collection.
Very well said. Digital IDs, CBDCs, and the total digital slavery state, all by 2030. Yeah, that nice little date right there they keep throwing out. Nice little flashback right here. Trump's Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, people, back in December 2020. I didn't even know he posted this. This is so laughable. What a moron. He says, I know I looked away from the needle, and yes, I know I need a 10, but I am so confident that the COVID-19 vaccine is safe and effective that I decided to take it myself. So back then, he was repeating the same scripted BS for COVID, COVID vaccine, safe and effective, to now carrying out another scripted agenda, going to war with Iran. Safe and effective, 2 weeks to flatten Iran. Using the same rhetoric every time. The strikes will be safe and effective. I mean, seriously, it must be exhausting reading from the same damn script every time. Oh, and remember I played a clip of Marco Rubio also pushing the alien psy-ops, saying we need to take it serious because another 9/11 could happen, but this time with aliens. He mentioned we had no clue terrorists would hijack planes using box cutters. Who knew they could pull something like that off? So imagine what aliens can do, he said. Remember that? I mean, it's just so absurd. But I got to end this with what Catherine Austin Fitz says right here. It's quite interesting.
But as a percentage, the Straits of Hormuz are hugely important. So now we're listening to the U.S. say, oh, we're helpless up against Iran, who's been suffering under, extraordinary sanctions that if that was really true, they wouldn't have all these amazing hypersonic missiles, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And now what we're watching is the entire global economy being severely shut down. So let me give you an example. We're in March. What is March? It's the spring, right? What happens in the spring? Farmers plant in the spring. Right now, we are shutting down the critical ingredients to most European factories who make fertilizer, right? Okay. And so by the time that gets through, whenever it gets through, it's going to be too late to make the fertilizer. You're going to miss the whole spring season. So I don't know. I just saw a headline, Goldman Sachs, leading member of the New York Fed, says that it's going to be shut down for 21 days, right?
Yeah.
Miss the planting season. Okay, so if you look at the material coming through that's critical to chip production, the material coming through the straits that's critical to fertilizer and food, and the material coming through that's critical to energy, you're talking about massive dislocation of the global economy. And if it goes on for long enough, I mean, we have Peru, Thailand, other people talking about doing COVID kind of shutdowns to save gas and fuel.
Yeah.
Right. But you're talking about intentionally shutting down the global economy. And it didn't start with Iran, and it didn't start with the United States. It started with the City of London. So Lloyd's of London shut down the straits with all their insurance company friends and reinsurance company friends, right? So the city shuts down the straits, and now the Iran is helping supposedly to keep it shut down.
Yeah.
Do you buy that story that the U.S. military is helpless?
No, but what I struggle with is it seems like a lot of countries and citizens across the world are going to suffer as a result of this war and as a result of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. So there will be global disorder and chaos to a large extent. And even if you look at Japan, they're especially vulnerable. But in the Second World War, Japan did Pearl Harbor, at least that's the common story, because they were shut off from the oil market. So when countries are in desperate position, they're going to take desperate measures. So this could easily lead to a much larger world war, this conflict in the Middle East. So that's a huge gamble then that the global elite, for example, are taking, because they run a risk themselves too. If we have a nuclear escalation and a nuclear holocaust, what's in it for them?
So well, what's in it for them is implementing the control grid and depopulation together. Yeah. Is what's in it for them. If this is, because we don't know yet. I think it's too early. I can't tell whether you're looking at massive incompetence on the basis of the U.S. or you're looking at an intentional desire to shut down. So this is COVID 2.0.
Yeah.
Because, this is how you shut down. This is a new excuse to shut down to preserve energy and food. I think the big problem here is famine. So you have seen the new administration in the United States systematically cut the domestic funds that are available to support food for poor people in emergencies, as well as the USAID and State Department aid to protect countries that have emergencies, like food. So you have, I don't know, 25 maybe $1 billion traditionally that the US had available to stop famines. That money is all cut. And now you have something that's creating the conditions of famine.
That's crazy.
So, to me, that's very disturbing.
That is crazy, people. Clearly all coordinated. And no, it's not incompetence, it's demonic possession. Okay. And that's where I'm going to leave it, folks. As you can see, I'm in a new location here because I had to make an emergency trip down to the lower mainland due to some personal reasons. And yeah, it's been quite brutal on me for the past few weeks. So I'm trying to recover now and start this up again. And it's been difficult, paying attention to what's happening around the world, especially with what's going on in my life. So I'm asking you for your support because I'm not doing well here financially. So if you do want to help, if you want to see this show continue, please click those links in the description. Do not send anything to my P.O. box. I am not in Kelowna anymore, so please do not send anything to my P.O. box. If you want a new address to send stuff to, reach out to me personally. EyesIsWatchin@gmail.com, realsteveeyes@gmail.com, or steve-iz@hotmail.com, and I will give you a new address to send stuff to. So please, people, if you want to support this show, if you want to help me with what I'm going through right now, click those links in the description. One-time donations greatly appreciated. My PayPal is in the description of this video. Please consider subscribing monthly to my Patreon or Subscribestar. Even subscribing for $1 a month on Patreon will greatly help me and help the show. So please consider hitting those links in the description. Coffee. You can get coffee from Gustavus, Alaska. It is great coffee, my favorite, and you will be helping fund this show as well. Crypto people out there, crypto wallets are in the description if you want to support this show. It is greatly appreciated. Until next week, folks, until next time, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel, signing off.